and I would like to give them a second to introduce themselves by telling me their names, their affiliation, and what they're doing in the community or for careers.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tuesday Owen. I am affiliated with Dignity Health. I work with Brian at Mercy General. What I am doing for the community is I started a program inside of our ER, which helps people get off of drugs. So if somebody is strung out or whatever it is that they're using, they can now present in the ED 24/7 and say that they're tired of living the way that they're living, and I will go to any extent to help them change their life, whether it's start them on medication, get them into treatment, whatever it may be. Every person is obviously different, but whatever it takes, right? And then what's really amazing about my position is I stick with my patients. So I'm not one of those where you come in the hospital and then you never see the person again. I follow them, and then I've got patients that check in from 2 years ago. So that support is crucial. So that's what I'm doing for the community.
Hey guys, I'm Janae. I have been dancing and just being part of this community for about 23 years now. Been living in Las Vegas for the last 7 years, doing my thing at MGM. But before that, I did a lot of just community work here in Sacramento. I taught at various studios and schools and community centers and all types of things. So I have a deep passion for just bringing dance and art to our communities, and look forward to doing some more of that in the future.
Yeah. Hi, my name is KJ. I am a movement artist, a full-time student, full-time mom, and in regards to the community, I feel like I'm really using art or dance specifically as a tool to kind of develop in ways and that increase access to certain resources. So there's a lot of things that I'm working on with Her Theory. It's a collective that I'm working on with my partner Coco, and we've come together to kind of create events, productions that center the lived experiences of women. And so I think when it comes to how we engage with the community and the things that we work to navigate through, we want to push that experience to the forefront, especially in the hip hop community. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Queens, for introducing yourself. I'm going to start it off with a general question for all of you guys to answer. If it does say creatives and it does not go towards you, Miss Tuesday, take it from a businesswoman. There we go. There we go. Let me know. So, for my first question, as a creative during COVID, did you find your mental health and perspective of self being affected due to the isolation? And if so, how did you find your way out of a difficult time?
So I actually can speak. I am a creative. I'm in the process of writing a book, and I'm a creative writer as well as a photographer, and I do graphic design as well. COVID, I fell into a little state of depression, or I should say a big state of depression. Many of my brothers and sisters in recovery were falling off at that time, and the isolation caused them to relapse and start using again. I lost 2 people that were dear to me during that time. Overdose rates were just went sky high during that time. And I wrote about it in some of my poetry. I don't share all of my poetry with everybody, but I have some personal poetry that is very dear to me. But yeah, it was a very tough time for the recovery world, that's for sure. And we lost a lot of people, and we continue to lose a lot of people. That's why the field and this work is so important. Fentanyl is leading the game and changed the game. Now we have a new drug on the street, and it's a very dangerous time. So education is key.
I would say I was definitely affected by the pandemic. I think, yeah, in in my 2 decades of dancing, I think that was the only 1 year that I didn't dance. Through that year, I spent the whole year at home. I think what was good about it was that it really made me sit back and question who I am, who I think I am. And I definitely experienced like a few ego deaths, I think, on one level, because I had so much momentum built up with all that I had been doing with everybody here in SAC and then doing my thing in Vegas, and just felt like I was just in this great place and everything just stopped. And I realized a few things, how replaceable I am at my job and just how quickly everything, can just be over with. And it really made me just look in the mirror and be like, okay, so when I'm not running around and dancing all day or, performing for you guys, who am I? Who am I again without putting my art at the forefront? It helped me get back grounded with my family and just focus on being a mom. I got to give a lot of quality time to my son, and that was really great. That was my favorite part. But another thing that it did is it helped put in perspective of like, okay, if everything could be over with tomorrow, whatever opportunities or things that I'm enjoying right now, like, and you only have one opportunity or have another opportunity to just like recreate yourself or, start a new direction, what would you do? And that actually had me starting to get real crazy with my fashion sense. I actually started like buying all these boots during the pandemic, believe it or not, like crazy stuff. And I have no reason or rhyme for why, but I think it was just like my inner teenager that was like, well, let's just be I just want to be who I want to be. So right now I like went back and I don't know, like I said, it was a lot of just who am I and who do I want to be? And I had a great opportunity to redefine that. So, yeah.
So during the pandemic, she was actually born in February 2020. And so then everything we had set up, my partner and I, everything we had set up to like hop into parenthood and, jobs, everything, housing, everything kind of just fell through for us. So I lost my job like many other people right in the beginning of pandemic. And so I was kind of trying to, similar to you, like reframe like what the next step is, like how do we go from here? And then so while carrying the weight of like, okay, how do I set up this world to be a better place for my daughter? I'm also kind of balancing like, who am I on this? Like everything I was doing, I was directly in the community. My jobs were in person, everything. So it was tough. I think I don't know if everybody goes through postpartum or what that looks like, but that was tough mentally. But I think I really it lit the fire under me to just go harder. So I ended up going back to school, finishing my associates, and then I fell into, I'm studying sociology. So that put a lot of influence on how everything is working. And then just even when it came down to like certain resources in the community and how all of those kind of fell through. So even like mental health, housing, employment, all of these things were kind of like, all the foundation for it was shaky. And especially in the pandemic. And so as I'm studying who's affected the most in crisis like that, I'm also trying to consider like, okay, how do I just get up every day and make sure that she's good? And so yeah, it was a tough time, but we made it. We made it.
Yes, we did make it. And I feel you because I went back to school during the pandemic as well and lost my job as well, or left my job as well. So, but this question is now to you, Miss Kayla. You have been dancing since you were 10 years old, and your journey has evolved from being a studio kid to immersing yourself as an adult choreography and in the freestyle scene as well. How have you maintained your sense of self and as you've grown into the woman you are today? Sorry.
Good question. So as far as like sense of self, I feel like I'm very solid and secure in who I am. And I think that is something I've always been able to hold on to. And so I didn't really like lose my sense of self, but it gave me like, I really found the other avenues of what I am. So pandemic, since we're talking about it, like I picked up sewing, I started reading a lot more. I'm just like finding all these other layers to myself. And then it just went directly back into dance, into movement. So what was the question? Oh, so I think with movement, it gives you some like sort of agency to your body, and I think like as a woman, there's a lot of places where we lose that. So I think like for dance, it really just like helped me channel that and put that to the forefront of everything else that I do in my life. So as I grew up in the dance community, no matter if it was like at a convention, a competition, a battle, like even in sessions, it was just something I like made sure I practiced and then put that in everything else. Yeah, and to add on, I've learned as I got older how to use dance as a tool more than just like this source of expression for me. It's hold on. Can I go to daddy? Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. We're attached, as you can tell. Yeah. She's great. She's the best. That's Issa. I'm sorry. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
No, you answered great. Thank you. So we're going to swing it over to Miss Rosebud, Miss Janae. And we'll go from you're currently in a predominantly male group, being the first female Jabberwocky. And how has the continuous presence of masculine energy influenced you as a dancer and as a person? So I'm stopped there because I have a twofer. So, because generally we are in a male-dominated industry as dancers. So how do you navigate as a woman?
So I'm currently the only woman working with Jabba right now. It's definitely not my first like male-dominated space. I think honestly, coming up in this dance scene, most of my mentors were men. And I think that I learned to align myself with masculinity majorly. I think I was able to progress in certain spaces as a dancer the more that I leaned into my masculinity, to be honest with you. Before Jabba, I spent time, me and Kayla, we were on Goodfellas. And even before that, but training with them, that definitely was a push for me to really lean into some hard, masculine, dominant energy. And I think that I learned along the way that I think I can understand, number one, why men end up kind of hiding behind or using their masculinity the ways that they do to push through things, because I started to use it as a defense mechanism if I felt too vulnerable in a certain way. And but I realized once I got to a certain point that I wasn't being true to myself. So then there's this inner battle of like my femininity being suppressed and my vulnerability constantly being hidden by like the stoic, energy that I'm giving out. And so I think recently I've had my femininity is kind of coming out with like a rebellious kick to it. Hence, the appearance right now. So when I'm not on stage, being hard with these guys, I'm immediately like trying to like get into like my feminine energy because I've been embracing it a lot more. But I would say just like overall in dance, to be completely honest with you, masculinity has led me through most of it. And I think that there was a lot of more like feminine spaces that I avoided. I think when I was in a different space and I wasn't as secure with myself, I had a problem also comparing myself to other women. So I liked being the only woman because then my femininity wasn't in question because there's no one to compare me to, right? So I would find a space where I stand alone so that you can't, compare, and I wouldn't worry about if I was woman enough or this enough or that enough. now I'm not in that space anymore. So, I feel like I'm in a much better place. I'm embracing it all, and I love how every woman comes to the table. I feel very secure in who I am now, and now I'm feeling a lot more just able to, like I said, explore my femininity and just stepping into my own groove. But yeah, it's played a huge part, for sure.
I'm gonna have you keep that,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna project because it's for Tuesday and for Kayla as well. I want to know, how do you make space for your femininity in male-driven industries such as Miss Janae has? So, how do you
Honestly, I haven't put too much thought into like comparing the two. But I think to go back to the last question, when it is like my sense of self, I think there's a lot of unique kind of perspective that women already kind of have. So like when, like I take for example, like us walking to the car, you know what I mean? We're already kind of like aware of certain situations. We have to like make sure we're safe. And I think that kind of habit translates in every situation, even if it's like unconscious. And so I think like, that's something that I feel like is very feminine for me. And then, yeah, I haven't put too much thought into like comparing the masculine and the feminine. I'd really just like try to push myself and let kind of whatever version of myself kind of be at the front. Yeah, we're a weird, gender's a spectrum. So yeah.
So can you repeat the question?
How do you make space for your femininity in rooms that are occupied by a lot of masculinity?
I'm pretty oblivious to all. Like people, I look at the human soul, really. Male, female, I don't even really pay much attention to that. I love people. I treat them all the same. But I will use this example. So for me, on a personal note, going much deeper and full self-disclosure, men are something that through the course of my life, every male relationship that I've ever had has been a negative one. And I don't just mean negative in the sense that it was just a bad relationship. Should I just say a little bit? So I grew up without a father. My mother was institutionalized when I was 2 days old. She put a pillow to my face and she tried to smother me. And when she was, talk about postpartum, and she was convicted into institution for 14 years. My grandmother raised me, but without a grandfather. So I never really had a father figure. When my mother was released from the institution, it was just a few days before my 15th birthday, is when I left home. I was 15 years old when a 49-year-old man stuck a needle in my arm. And then from there, I just went on a chaotic mess. And I was kidnapped and sex trafficked, and lots of bad things happened to me. All, I hate to say this, but by the hands of a man. So now, so many years later, and after 24 years of living in hell and 14 years sober, I still struggle with relationships. There's still some work there. I do not trust men with the personal part of me, but in terms of work and just everyday life, I'm oblivious. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. I love people. I treat basically everybody the same. We're all equal, I feel. But to go deeper, it's a struggle for me.
Thank you so much for sharing with us and being so transparent in this conversation. The reason I posed that question was because oftentimes as women, we put our femininity in the forefront when in the presence of men, and sometimes lose ourselves in that process. Or sometimes when, like Janae's story, we will over-masculine or like overcompensate for masculinity in the room. So it's like, in my opinion, it's about finding the balance to be strong and to be masculine and to take up space and be unapologetically dominant as a woman, not having to present as masculine all the time. So that's why I posed that question. So thank you. Let's see. We'll go back to Miss Janae. Yes. You've already answered my question. Never mind. It was about your personal sense of style. Yes. Okay. I'll ask you then. I said, how has your unique personal style, as in fashion and other forms of expression, influenced your journey?
Okay, so my style is definitely a reflection of like my personal philosophies and my psyche, and definitely my journey. And right now, I'm feel like I'm just like Alice in Wonderland, jumping down rabbit holes and going on adventures, and I dress that way. I'm very grateful to love my job, be an artist, and have that freedom. You know, some of us may work jobs where it's like, I can't color my hair, or I can't wear this, I can't wear that. I have like infinite freedom to like be whoever I want most of the time. And so I'm really just leaning into it and taking full advantage. I'm in my Spice Girl era, guys. I'm scary for sure. Yeah, I'll be for sure. Yeah, I really have always been into like, I also kind of missed the like goth punk grunge phase when I was younger, but I was watching like, I want to look like that. So here I am, 33-year-old me, like 13-year-old me would be like, girl, like, you know, so I'm also using my style to like heal my younger self and to just be exactly who I always wanted to be then. Like, honestly, if like, I just looked at the flyer when this event came out and I cried, because like literally like 13-year-old me is like, that's me. Like, I'm expressing myself exactly how I want to. Like, it doesn't matter how crazy it is, you know what I mean? It feels really good. And I feel like in my journey in life, I do in a very similar way, like just go in a totally left field direction. Like, I don't know what's going on over here, but I like it. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how my life falls together, right? Like even, you know, dancing with Jabba or doing what I'm doing, it's not really a path that's been traveled. So, you know, I'm just over here jumping down rabbit holes and believing in possible things every day and being fanciful and whimsical. And that's kind of my real life philosophy. That's where my art comes from. And that's why I do what I do, baby. Yeah.
The reason I posed the question about fashion, and I kind of want to open it up to you ladies as well, is because I'm a fashion major. And so how you dress or what you wear says a lot about how you're feeling and where you're at. And for me personally, I like 90s hip hop, so I'm going to be baggy all day. And I still feel feminine. I still feel my energy and presence, but some people want to show it off. So I want to know, like, what makes you guys feel like you? Like, what item of clothing or what do you put on that makes you feel like you and like, this is me, and exuding self-love?
That's a good question. I'm kind of a like boho, kind of gypsy, kind of, you know, not. Yeah, I don't really know what my style is. I will say, I never not wear black, so I don't know if that's any reflection of but I, quite honestly, am still on this journey of self-discovery because I have used drugs all my life and was lost in addiction for 24 years. So at 14 years of sobriety, you know, at 14 years sober, I'm still discovering who I really am. I absolutely love myself today, but it took me a long time to get there. It took me a really long time to get there. For the longest, I grew up feeling unloved. I grew up feeling like a burden. So there was never that connection with just never had a true connection with a person. So that takes a toll on somebody, especially as a child. So growing up, that was absent for me. And I had to learn to love myself, which is where I'm at today. After a lot of hard work, and a lot of headache and a lot of bumping my head and falling down and picking myself back up again. But what keeps me going is when I do for others. When I go into the trenches, when I go into the depths of hell, literally, on the streets of wherever, if I go down to the lower bottoms in Oakland, or if I go down to Loaves and Fishes and I go down, wherever I go, down to the river, and they're all stuck and got needles in their arms and pipes out of their mouth. When I can go walk down there and literally drag a human person out of there and put them on the path to change their life, and 2 years later they are in their apartment after being chronically homeless for 14 years and celebrating 2 years sober, that's what does it for me.
You want me to go after that? No, you're doing incredible work. Like, I commend you for that. As far as creativity and fashion, is that what the? Yeah. So every day it changes for me, but I think I was telling my partner, like, what we wear that day or what we look like that day is just like our first creative choice. So even if it is just like we're staying in the house, or we got to get groceries, or we're just running to the gas station, it's just like you get to step into that practice of being creative. So I don't have like a signature piece that I like to play with it a little bit, because tomorrow I may not look like this, or I think it's just fun to kind of maintain your look in all the kind of spaces that you're in. But I do put that as just the practice of being creative. So what you look like and what pieces you pick. And I enjoy thrifting a lot too. I think there's a lot of fun in and it's sustainable. It's good for the environment. It's better than fast fashion. But I think that's kind of my approach to it. It is just like that first creative choice. And I think just the privilege in having that, because not everybody thinks about it, so I think it is just kind of like a note to our privilege that we get to be creative and we get to just practice that. I think it is just like a little gem of the day. Yeah.
Yes.
I love the fact that I could throw on some camos when I go into the trenches and then come out and wear a white dress and be feminine.
Did you have anything to add? Thank you, Queens. For our next question, is open to all of you. I want to know, have you always prioritized self-love and worth and walking in your purpose? And if not, when was the turning point when you decided to navigate differently? So, maybe we'll start with Kayla and we'll bring it back around.
So Janae and we go way back. And so being on the panel too, we're like, dang, we're talking about self-love, because I feel like we've been through it where it wasn't there. We weren't the best to ourselves. I keep forgetting the question, just like what, did we always prioritize it? I'm like in the back of my mind making sure my daughter's good. But probably recently, where when after I became a mother, that's when self-love, I think that like dialogue around self-love, mental health kind of popped up in my life personally, to where I was waking up every day and every hour, every second was dedicated to this little girl. She's the best in the world. I'd do it over and over again. But it wasn't until then, like, I became a mother and I was like, okay, I'm losing grasp of what I'm here to do. And so I think when I needed to prioritize my well-being in that form, not even just self-love, I still didn't necessarily I don't have all the tools to be at the top all the time mentally, but it just being able to set aside okay, I need to get work done. I need to, do all these things and commit to the promises I made to myself. I think that came after I gave birth. Yeah.
Okay, so did I always prioritize self-love? I mean, I think I never, not across the board, but I think that dance and art specifically was that one consistent factor in my life that was the strength of my self-love. But I felt like I, for many years, in an unhealthy imbalance would only like love myself the most when I'm in these dance and artistic spaces. But there's like so much more to our life and who we are as people, right? Than just this like spotlight moment. So, you know, when I'm home by myself, or like particularly when it comes to like personal relationships and dating, it took me a long time to learn what that means to love myself. Did not understand boundaries at all. And boundaries are constantly being pushed. And so one thing I had to learn about self-love is really setting a hard boundary all the time and not letting people play with you in that way and cross boundaries. So I will say, on the one hand, like consistently, I always felt really highly about myself in a certain way, dance and like expressing myself creatively. But when it came to interacting with people, maybe like interacting relationships, and I had for a while, I had a habit of wanting to manipulate. Like, I care about how you see me, and I want to see how much I can manipulate it to make sure that you like me. You know what I mean? Like that, I had that problem for a while, but I think that I was able to let that go. The more I just prioritize getting quiet with myself and learning how to put, like finding those core values and principles that matter to you, and then operating off of that why, setting your like intentions and making sure you have your personal integrity, and then everything else kind of blooms from there. And that's the best way for me to like make sure that I'm loving on myself and then being able to love on you guys properly. So I'm not using our interactions as some weird like validation tactic because I don't love myself. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't always, but now, you know, I've learned. I think, I do think, yeah, becoming a mother does kind of kick that into gear, because again, since I was already noticing, like I'm looking at you guys and I want to know how you look at me. When I do that with my kid, it's so different. What he sees in me and what I want him to be able to get and learn from me. I was like, okay, I really need to get it together, because he can see me. He can see more than I see in myself sometimes, you know, or the things that I think that I'm hiding, I'm not. So yeah, I think motherhood was a great mirror. But yeah, I prioritize it now, so that's good.
So for me, self-love is something I recently discovered. You have to understand that my life had got so bad that I was basically disposable. So when I was kidnapped on the streets of West Oakland and bad things happened to me in the course of 3 days, it was just something that happened. I had lost all sense of care. If I ever had any self-worth, it was definitely not there. And it's not like I had self-hatred, but my childhood and my drug use really took me to the pits of hell. And it really, I really had become disposable out there. There was a time that I knew, had I passed, overdosed or whatever, that nobody would even know. And so that's kind of rough, you know. And I don't really even know when I started to kind of think, ooh, this chick is pretty damn cool. But somewhere in my recovery, you know, maybe 3 years into my recovery, because when I got sober, I remember about a year or two after I got clean, that life still sucked. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm sober. I haven't touched anything in 2 years, but why does life suck so bad? You know, I had been self-medicating. So there's mental health all through my family. My mother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar. My grandma had bipolar. It's all through my family. So, and you think I got a little PTSD? So like when I finally went and saw a therapist for the first time ever in my life and was diagnosed with clinical depression and PTSD, it kind of all made sense. And they started me on an antidepressant, which really didn't seem to do anything. But it wasn't until I incorporated therapy, that's when things really started to, you know, change for me. And I had a badass therapist at the time too, and she pushed me. She made me go out on dates with men. Oh, you know what I mean? It was really hard for me to do. But she pushed me, and it's like, I don't know, I just kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And then I started feeling better about myself and started feeling better about myself. And I started to see my potential and I started to see my worth and I started, to feel good about myself. And I started getting out there and applying for jobs that said they need a master's, and even the position that I'm in now required a bachelor's degree. And I don't have any damn degrees. And I told them that when I did the interview, I've got nothing behind my name. But what I do have, what I can do is, have an influence on the 18-year-old child who just started abusing her mom's Vicodin to the dude who just got out of prison and been shooting dope for 50 years. And all those people in between I could impact. And they said that's what it took. So I don't know, as I walk in there and, and then I get the job, you know what I mean? I just started feeling confident and I started to know my worth and know what I was capable of achieving, and that's kind of where the self-love just kind of somewhere incorporated in. But it's all new to me. But it's growing and it's powerful and it's growing stronger every day. But it is new and I would have to say probably new in terms of within the last 10 years. But like I said a little bit ago, today, I'm madly in love with myself.
Thanks for sure. Well, my time is almost done. So to wrap it up, I have one more question, and that would be, what does living in your power mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind? So, twofer, living in your power, and what does that mean to you, and what do you want to leave behind?
I don't know, you guys. I can't explain it. I just know that I have some power within me, and I'm not ashamed of my story. And that question that they asked earlier is, would you like to look into the future, change the past? As much pain and heartache I've experienced, I wouldn't want to change a thing because it's made me who I am today, and that gives me power. You know what I mean? It really, really, really does. My story is I'm able to use my story as a tool, and I think that's my strongest tool. And I want to be known as one of those people who made a difference in other people's lives. That's what I live for, and that's what I strive for. So, I know. Remember I told you guys a little bit ago that if I died, I don't think anyone would know. I know today if I died, there would be a whole lot of people at my funeral.
Ooh, this is a good question. This is a good one. Living in my power, I feel like that looks like, number one, a level of acceptance for just what everything is, where I'm at, really just being able to sit in that and embrace it. And then at the same time, being able to go forward and create or, change things the way that I see fit. I really like leaning into the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to, accept what I can't change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And to me, that's very empowering to know when to just embrace things or what they are, to know when to go for it and really believe in myself. I'm like full of just different ideas and visions. I love collaborating and creating with people, and I just feel really empowered when those things come to life and when I'm making new connections with you guys. And honestly, living in my power also looks like being in a state of love, period. Just like being able to embrace that as a state of being, There's a lot of other states of being you can be in, but being in the state of love is like the most empowering at times. And I think the legacy that I would like to leave behind, I really just, like I said, I live by just really just fantastical, whimsical kinds of philosophies. I really like the idea of just like understanding the matrix and then breaking it, if that, whatever rules there are to follow, learn them and then break them if you can. But like, I feel like, no, honestly, the legacy I want to leave behind is just you don't have to stay within like whatever those status quo and norms are. Be brave enough to start on a new path and a new journey of self-discovery And if you just start with yourself, just really tapping in and venturing with yourself, that's going to be a reflection on everybody around you and everybody that you are, in contact with. So yeah, I hope that the legacy I leave behind will encourage everybody to just really tap into their truest self and really bring that forth, whatever that is. There's something within you that like we all want to experience with you, and you're the only one that can bring it out. Like there's nobody. I know that we have these ideas, and sometimes like, oh dang, I had that same idea, but it's like when you do it, it's gonna be like no other. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of the legacy I want to leave behind, is like that be true to you and share it with us and do it in a way that's so you. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my power comes from just having an ongoing curiosity about my own movement, but then kind of just everything else that's happening in the world, and then just having knowledge about it too. So for me, knowledge is power. It's very a direct relationship for me. So the more I'm able to understand and like kind of like be critical about what's happening, my own movement, just how I connect with other people, I feel like that's my source of power. So as long as I'm able to kind of like breathe life into those things, I feel powerful, and it allows me to kind of just go through the ups and downs of life as long as I'm committed to that. Yeah, and I think a legacy for me in all the work that I do in different capacities, if you meet me as a movement artist, if you meet me at my job, like if you meet me anywhere else, like I hope you feel respected enough to like know that you belong here. I think specifically for women, there's a lot of other like marginalized communities that don't feel like they belong in higher up places. And so I think that's kind of something I want to have bleed through the rest of my work. Yeah.
Thank you so much, my queens, for being so transparent and for going there with me, especially in a room full of people you might not know. And speaking your truth is a part of living in your power. So thank you.